Samuel was not an ordinary man if he could locate the Jade Maiden scripture that quickly. For all they knew, they might find surprising information with his information network. Samuel smiled. I will look into your request, Mr. Reese. I'll notify you immediately once I have news. Thank you. We'll be leaving now. Destin nodded and left soon after. Ha ha ha, we got the Jade Maiden scripture without spending any money. This is fantastic. Nikki was excited on the way back. She had thought she was going to lose the treasure. The result came as a surprise. There seems to be something off about this scripture. Destin was puzzled as he looked at the sheepskin scripture in his hands. He'd studied various ancient texts since he was young. He recognized the cultivation methods in the Jade Maiden scripture from a different book he'd read. Not to mention, he was extremely well versed in those teachings. However, that book wasn't called the Jade Maiden scripture. What caught his attention was that the contents of the scripture in his hands were incomplete. What's off about it? Could this treasure be fake? Nikki was taken aback and grew nervous. Destin shook his head. It's not exactly fake, but rather incomplete. Incomplete. Nikki frowned and took the sheepskin scripture from him. She carefully flipped through it and said, "Where's the missing part? It looks complete to me." Come on, don't just speak nonsense. It's not just the content that's incomplete. There's something wrong with the cover too. It seems like there's something hidden inside it. Why don't we open it up? Destin rubbed his chin. The front and back covers of the scripture had different thicknesses, though the difference was minor. He still noticed when he touched the scripture. Hey, I'm warning you not to mess around. Nikki hugged the sheepskin scripture protectively close to her chest. This is the Jade Maiden Sisterhood's precious treasure. Will you be able to bear the responsibility if it is damaged? I was just saying. You don't have to open it if you don't want to. Destin shrugged. Although the Jade Maiden scripture was impressive, it was only suitable for women. It had no use for him. He was only interested to see it because of his curiosity. Humph, smart move. Nikki breathed a sigh of relief. It was embarrassing to admit, but it was thanks to Destin that she could get her hands on the Jade Maiden scripture. When they returned, she would put in a good word for him with Madam Edith and ensure he was rewarded accordingly. 20 minutes later, the car stopped at the entrance of Zephyr Lodge. They had just exited the car when Brittany and a few disciples rushed up to them excitedly. Nikki, I heard you found the Jade Maiden scripture. Where is it? Let me see. Brittany was unable to hide the excitement on her face. It's right here. Have a look. Nikki passed the box containing the Jade Maiden scripture to her. Brittany's excitement grew as she studied the scripture. It is the Jade Maiden scripture. This is great. Congratulations, Brittany. You found our treasure. The disciples behind her praised her. All of you had a hand in finding the scripture, Brittany said as she flipped through the scripture. She was thrilled. Brittany, we could only get our hands on it thanks to Destin. Nikki attempted to give Destin credit. Brittany swept a glance at Destin. She looked at Destin arrogantly. You finally caved in. Have you finally realized you should be pleasing me? You men are always saying one thing but meaning another. Let me make it clear. My actions have nothing to do with you, Destin clarified immediately. You're still being stubborn. Why would you be so enthusiastic about finding the scripture if you aren't in love with me? I've seen through you, so stop pretending. Brittany raised her head, looking proud. Destin was rendered speechless. He wondered where her confidence came from. She could twist any situation to make it all about herself and speak as if it was a fact. Fine, given that you went through all that trouble for me, I won't hold your past mistake against you anymore. Starting today, I'll allow you to be my fanboy, Brittany said in a naughty tone. Hey, what are you doing just standing there? Hurry up and thank her. You're lucky that you're getting a chance to please Brittany. You must cherish it. A few disciples crossed their arms, looking like Destin had struck gold. Destin rolled his eyes. He couldn't bother wasting his time with a bunch of lunatics. What's going on here? Just then, Edith strolled in with an old woman. Their proud demeanor made it seem like royalty was arriving. Madam Edith, you arrived just in time. We have good news. We found the Jade Maiden scripture. Brittany excitedly passed the sheepskin scripture to her. You found it. Madam Edith was astounded. She took a closer look. Instantly, her expression turned to joy. It is the Jade Maiden scripture. This is great. Who found it? I'll have to reward them handsomely. I found it, Madam Edith. I went through a lot of trouble to obtain this precious treasure. I didn't disappoint, did I? Brittany stepped up. She didn't hesitate to take all the credit. Nikki was stunned by her words. Madam Edith, I can testify that Brittany was the one who got the Jade Maiden scripture. That's right. It was all thanks to Brittany. That rotten bastard had nothing to do with it. Nikki, you must have been mistaken. The disciples spoke out one after the other, choosing to side with Brittany. Why you all? Nikki was annoyed. She couldn't believe all of them were exactly like Brittany. They didn't hesitate to change the truth. It was outrageous. Did you hear that, Nikki? Everyone here saw it. Are you still going to argue with me? Brittany smirked triumphantly. She looked at Nikki as if she were a fool. In the Jade Maiden sisterhood, other than Madam Edith and a few others, nobody dared to go against Brittany. She could distort the truth as she liked. Madam Edith, please believe me. I'm not lying. Nikki didn't give up and tried to get Madam Edith's support. Many of them are saying you're wrong. How am I supposed to believe you? Edith's expression was frosty. It seems like exhaustion is making you confused. If there's nothing else, you should return to your room and rest. With that, Edith turned around to leave. Madam Edith. Nikki panicked and grabbed her sleeve. I'm not lying. It's Brittany who. Shut it. Edith grew impatient and slapped Nikki across the face. Following the crisp sound, Nikki was knocked to the ground. Her cheeks swelled as blood trickled down the corner of her mouth. She struggled to get up. You spoke ill of your senior and showed no respect to your elders. You have overstepped your boundary. You must be taught a lesson. Otherwise, you'll repeat the same actions or worse. You will kneel here until night. You're not allowed to get up before then. Etty's tone was sharp and her expression dark. Madam Edith. Nikki cupped her cheek, feeling lost. She wasn't lying. She was just asking for justice. Was that wrong? How dare you? Brittany glared at Nikki, enraged. Nikki Horst, are you questioning me? Brittany roared. I'm just speaking the truth. Nikki lowered her head slightly, but her gaze remained unyielding. The truth, HMPH. You're just trying to undermine me. Brittany's expression soured. We're guild members, and I can't believe you'd challenge me on behalf of an outsider. With her seniority in the guild, no one dared talk back to her, even when she was oppressive and unjust. She couldn't believe Nikki questioned her publicly and embarrassed her. Nikki should have known her place. Brittany, don't you have a conscience? We can't just ignore it when Dustin helped us out. Nikki reasoned. Shut up. Brittany's temper flared, and she slapped Nikki hard across the face. She screamed, Who the hell do you think you are? How dare you lecture me? You! Nikki bit her lips, feeling wronged. Her face was swollen from the slap. Just then, Edith finally spoke up. Enough. We're all members of the same guild. There's not need to argue about a small matter. Madam Edith, I'm telling the truth. Dustin handed the Jade Maiden scripture to me personally before I handed it to Brittany. Nikki tried to explain. Do you have proof? Edith asked impassively. The other disciples saw what happened. They can vouch for me. Nikki pointed at them. Oh, is that so? Edith looked over lazily at the other disciples. Madam Edith is asking a question. All of you must answer truthfully. Brittany's expression was icy, and her gaze was hostile.